Welcome to AKS IAS. We have finally come to the fifth and the final session in the series of orientation lectures we have organized for the anthropology optional. And today's session will be dealing with the tribal societies of India, which is a component of paper 2. As usual, I have again divided the session into 3 segments. First, I will give you all a brief idea about what we will study in tribal India or tribal societies, who are these people and all these things. We will study about them, a basic idea. In the second segment, again, I'll go back to the syllabus. I will point out the relevant chapters which are related to tribal India, tribal anthropology, and also will show you the interlinkages between these chapters and the order in which you need to study them. And finally, as usual, I'll take 2 questions from the last year and briefly discuss them with you all. So let me go into the discussion. First, a brief introduction about tribal societies. I'll ask you all a question. We have all heard the word tribe or tribal people, tribal societies, yes? If I ask you all, what is the image that you get in your mind of when you see listen the word tribe or tribal? What is the kind of image that you get? You will try and see, you will kind of get a kind of a negative representation generally, like these people are primitive, backward. These are the words that we generally tend to use. Fine. I'll just try to put my point through a picture over here. Just have a look at this picture. You have a set of people over here. They're all tribes. We call them tribes. Okay. Are their culture, their way of life, their dress, their skin color, their facial features and their dressing patterns are quite different from the usual things that we find around us. We are all coming from the mainstream societies, whereas these tribal societies are those societies which are culturally distinct, slightly different way of life from the mainstream life. Okay, so here these people are Indians. They are equally Indians as you and I are. These people are the Nagas of Nagaland. So they are one tribe living in Nagaland. Where is Nagaland? Nagaland is in this portion of the country, northeastern portion. Here, these people, another tribe, they see the differences among them. So very different, very different from us. They are different from each other also. Their culture is different, their languages are different, their racial features, their ethnic or body features are different. Yeah. And now these people are the Jaravas, and they stay in the Andaman Nicobar Islands. They stay in this part of India. They are also Indians. Okay. Next, you look at these people over there. They are Chenchus. They are a hunting gathering tribe. All of them are kind of hunting gathering tribes. More details you will get in the course. Here it's only a kind of a brief introduction that we are doing. And to give you all a visual appeal, I've thought I'll pick up a few images so that you will understand what we actually study about. Okay. So if you look at these people, they are Chenchu tribe. They belong from the AP, Andhra Pradesh region, the Nallamala forest. So these people are coming from this part of the country. And this way, if you look, so just have a look at another look at these people. So you'll understand what when I refer to tribal societies, I hope you have already got an idea what are we are going to study about. Okay, that is, we live in the mainstream society. The tribal people are located on the fringes of our society. They live in deep forests or in very difficult geographical areas where climates are slightly extreme, or they live mainly in, if you look at here, if you try to understand the geographical distribution of these tribes, see the northeastern portion of the country is a very densely forested area, and you can see, given the proportion, this dark color is showing greater proportion of tribal people living in that area, and this lighter color means less proportion of tribals in that area. So as you can see, these are the plain areas, the Ganga plains. Here, obviously, because there are no forests and all, you will not find much of tribes. But whereas look at this portion of the country, you will find a lot of dark regions over there. Why? Because it's a very densely forested area and you will find a lot of tribal people living there. And in some areas like the Andaman Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep, you will find, because these are again isolated societies, so the interaction with the mainstream society is slightly low or less. You cannot say no, it is slightly less. And that's the reason these people have evolved different lifestyle from the mainstream society. I hope you understood the difference between the mainstream society and the tribals. And that is why anthropology has a separate component for studying them, because they are different from the mainstream society. By studying Indian society, you do not automatically understand tribal society. You have to separately study tribal society because they are culturally, racially very, very different. And now here comes the role of anthropology. What you understand, as I just now said, if you see from a common man's perspective, for him or her, these people look something kind of backward and primitive. But such an attitude or such a viewpoint is, I'll say, not only false, wrong, but also reflects a sense of arrogance on your part. Because they are equally human. They have been living in their areas since several thousands and thousands of years without assistance of anyone. You need not go and assist them. They have their own lifestyle. They have their own cultures. They have their own beliefs. They have their own economic systems and all these things. They are not dependent on anyone. Fine. Here, anthropology, the main role of anthropology is to change that attitude, negative attitude towards them, and replace that attitude with an attitude of respect. And how does an anthropologist do this? He tries to understand the situation not from our point of view, but from their point of view. That is, it is not always we who judge them. We cannot judge someone else that you are primitive or you are backward. That is arrogance, okay? When you study the course of anthropology, you will understand through a technical term called ethnocentrism. Okay, which means that we believe that our culture is better than their culture. What they people eat, obviously you can understand what things these people might be eating. What is your food, the day-to-day food that we have? Automatically, if we see their food, we will feel that, oh, what is the food these people are eating? But then that is what is anthropology tries to change. If, imagine, you were born in that society, that would be very natural for you. That would be very, very natural for you. So, you cannot see things from your side and judge them. You have to go on to their side and understand their point of view as well. And this is what anthropology tries to do. Fine. And thus, anthropology has a specific focus on the tribal societies. I hope you understood what tribal societies are, why they are culturally distinct from us, from the mainstream society, and why should we study them, what is the common man's perspective, and how anthropology wants to change that perspective and give them a mutual respect. That is, we can only say that they are different from us. We cannot say they are inferior to us. In fact, there are a lot of things that we can learn from the tribal people as well. Because if you look at their social structure, they have a more equality, a lot of equalities there in their society. If you look at their lifestyle, they are not very harmful on the environment. Their lifestyle is very much in tune with nature. Whereas if you look at our lifestyle, it is very, very environmentally destructive. We are destroying the environment. We are changing the climates. These people are not doing all those things. Fine. They are living in equilibrium with the nature around them. They don't unnecessarily change the nature or environment. So there are many positive aspects in the tribal societies also. It is to bridging the gap between these two is the role of anthropology. Fine. If this is one aspect of tribal societies, let me now take you all to the another aspect which is more relevant from the examination point of view. So this is a general idea to give you all who are tribals, and then this is the distribution that you will find almost from top to down. You will have all the states, most of the states have some amount of tribal population. Some have more, some have less. And if you look at this area, which is again a densely forested area, you will have a lot of tribal people living in those areas. Okay. Now let me go a step further and try to understand things in a more broader perspective. Fine. If you look at here, I am talking specifically with respect to India, but what I am discussing here is equally valid to the entire world also. But I am restricting my discussion with respect to India. See, today we call some other people as tribes and tribal people with a negative connotation. But one has to remember that if we time travel or we go back for several thousand years, if we go back a several thousand years, we will see that all of us, even the present modern day civilizations or huge societies, where all of us were at some time, thousands of years back, all of us were tribes. Everyone was tribes. That is, people living in different parts of the country. Yes, all of them are tribes. Each one tribe is living in their own area. They are living their lives peacefully in equilibrium with their environment around them. No one is disturbing them and they are happy with their lives. But now the story starts changing slowly. Of all these societies, some societies, for various reasons, they start experiencing technological developments. Some societies have started advancing. Suppose some societies here have started undergoing some technological development. As a result, their technology is becoming more advanced. Their populations will increase, and they will start expanding. These societies have started expanding, and in this process they have built big armies, and this all you will study inside the course. Okay, just try to understand what I'm exactly trying to say here. So everyone was a small tribal society initially, but some of them started becoming experienced technological improvements and started becoming more powerful than other communities, and they started spreading their influence over an area, and over a period of time you will see such societies have expanded and expanded and expanded. And in that process, many areas in which these local tribes were living, all these areas or territories got integrated into the bigger society. These powerful societies, they territorially integrated all these small areas and tribes. But here comes the point, and the friction comes here. The tension starts here. That is, I belong to this powerful society, and these are the tribal societies. I have got control over the territory. All these territories under my control. That is, territorial integration of tribes into the modern society is finished. But do you think the tribes will accept such kind of an external control on their lives? Obviously no. No one would like that. And this is where the problem comes. That is, territorial integration has been done, but the psychological integration or cultural integration of the tribal people with the culture or the psychology of the mainstream people has not happened completely, and this is a very, very slow process. And this is where the frictions between the non-tribal mainstream society and the tribal people come. That is, to put it in one point, is that the non-tribals have control over very huge areas. Because these people have undergone technological developments, they have big armies and all these things, they control such huge areas. But inside these huge areas, you have people living in small areas, small pockets, where these people live in their own small world, the tribal people. That is, territorially they are a part of India. But psychologically, culturally, are they really a part of Indian society, completely integrated, or they feel alienated and marginalized? Yes, this is the process going on and on and on. That is, how to bring the tribals into the mainstream society. And this is not so easy a process. It's quite a lengthy process. And it always happens that when two different cultures meet, that is the mainstream culture over here and the tribal cultures over here, generally what happens, definitely some amount of friction is going to start. And because the mainstream society is technologically more advanced than the tribal societies, they have always been exploited. That is, all the problems of the tribal people that we see today are mainly because of the contact by the non-tribal people. Non-tribal people are encroaching into their territories. We are going into their territories, grabbing their resources, diluting their culture, all these things are happening in that process. Fine. This is generally the basic idea of what you are going to study in the tribal India or tribal societies in the paper 2 portion. That is the mainstream society and tribals, the interaction between them, how to integrate these people into us, not only territorially but psychologically and culturally also, and what are the problems we face, and all these things will be discussed in the syllabus. Now let me come to the second segment over here and show you the exact chapters that that are there in the syllabus and the linkages between the individual chapters and the order in which you have to study them. Because again, this part of the syllabus is not very neatly defined. There are a lot of discontinuities you will find. You simply cannot start reading from 6.1, 6.2 and you cannot simply go. You will need to make a lot of arrangements. You'll have to make a lot of arrangements over here, because different chapters have linkages with one another and the syllabus has not been defined very neatly. Okay, let me go into that second aspect and show you all. Now, if you want to study tribals of India, obviously try to understand, you should know, first you should have an India map in your mind, and you should understand who are all the tribals, where are they living. For example, just now sometime back we saw, you should know from every state which tribals are living in which place, what is their language, what is their culture, how do they look like, what are their body features and all these things. Only when you know which tribals are living in which part of the country, you can talk something about them. And thus, you will see the chapter number 6.1 will try to introduce you all to the different tribes of India. So, it will tell you, in this region we have these tribes, in this region we have so tribes, in this region we have these tribes. So once you know which tribes are living in which areas, you can then start proceeding. There you will find in 6.2, you will start looking at the problems these people are facing. Why are they facing problems? Is it because of their problem? No. The main problem is because of non-tribals. Non-tribals are going into their territories. As I just now said, all the story, that is where the main source of problem. If you leave the tribals alone, they are happy with their life. They will not disturb other people. They don't like other people disturbing them. But the problem is, in the modern society, in the materialistic societies, as we tend to expand and expand and expand, as populations, our own populations increase, we want more and more resources. So that is forcing our society to go into the territories of tribal societies. And they don't like all these things, because someone else outside is going and trying to grab their resources. Definitely that will not be acceptable to them. Fine. But still, because they are coming from a less technologically advanced societies, generally they are on the negative end. They are being exploited. So all these problems you will start seeing. That is, in 6.1 you will see who are the tribal people in India. In 6.2 you will start seeing what are their problems. And in 7.1, which is related to 6.2, please try to study this syllabus in this order, because there are a lot of linkages between each chapter. In 7.1 is also related to problems of scheduled tribes. Okay, and here you will not only have problems, but you will also have constitutional safeguards. The constitution makers of India, when they made the constitution, they were very much aware that when these tribals were being integrated into India, when India was being formed in 1947 and 1950, the constitution makers understood very clearly that, yeah, these people are coming from a very, very different culture. We cannot abruptly join them into the mainstream society. They need some kind of protection. They need some kind of safeguards. Otherwise, these non-tribals will definitely exploit them and they will be discriminated very badly. So, the constitution makers understood the need for giving some safeguards to them. And that too, these safeguards were embedded in the constitution itself. So, no matter which party comes to power in the government, because the safeguards are mentioned in the constitution itself, the tribes are given these safeguards, and they are utterly necessary. As you can see from the images I have shown you all some time back, they need some kind of safeguards. I am not saying they need your assistance. No, not that way. They simply say they need some shelter. There needs to be put some restrictions. If all the non-tribals are allowed to go into the tribal areas, the tribal cultures will be driven to extinction in a few years itself. Fine. So there is need for some constitutional safeguards. You will study in this chapter. Again, when it comes to 6.3, you will see that the mainstream society, in the name of development, we undertake a lot of activities. We build dams, we build highways, we build so many things. What will happen as a result of these projects? They are benefiting the mainstream society, but just imagine when you construct a dam, a lot of area is submerged in the water. A lot of area is required for storing that reservoir. Where will this area come? It will be all submerging the nearby forest area. And who is living in this forest? It is the tribal people who are living in this forest. So again, in this case, the problems for the tribal people are not their own problems. It is the problems created by the mainstream society. Again, that is what you are going to study in the 6.3 chapter as well. And coming to 7.2, we will see that again, because of there is constitutional safeguards, India has adopted a democracy. Every Indian will be given right to vote. He can participate in the elections. The scheduled tribes have been given reservations in the parliament, in the state assemblies, etc. So that these people will also participate in the decision making of the country. Fine. And all these things will obviously have an impact upon the tribal people. That is, the tribal people of the present day India are not the same as they were some time back. They are steadily being the attempts are being made to integrate them into mainstream society. How are we trying to integrate them into mainstream society? By giving them reservations in the political, in the educational, and all aspects. We are trying to give them reservations, and slowly in this process they are going to integrate into the mainstream society. And the attempt in that you will study in the 7.2. But now let us come to 7.3. Here you will find that when such attempts are being made to integrate these societies into mainstream society, don't you think there will be a reaction from their side? They will feel that their identity is getting lost. Their cultures are getting lost, because just imagine a tribal person coming from a remote village, a remote forest. He makes use of reservation or something. He comes into the mainstream society. He starts living in the mainstream society. Obviously, he will get used to this kind of culture. And do you think, will this person go back and live in the forest again? Once he has got used to these material comforts, yes. And when he goes, even if he goes back to his village or forest, he is going to carry along with him a lot of cultural elements from the mainstream society. As a result of which, over a period of time, as more and more youngsters are coming from these tribal areas into the mainstream society, the tribal societies are losing their cultural identity. That is coming into a crisis. And as I just now said, yes, these are territorially a part of India, but psychologically and culturally, how much they are a part of India is still a debatable issue. Many people, many tribal societies are resisting this kind of forcible integration into the country. And this is not a country specific, this is something happening at a world level, not only in India, it is happening throughout the world. Fine. And that you will see this problem and the resistance from, there will be resistance from the tribal societies or no? There will be resistance, and that resistance you will study in the chapter 8.3. If you 7.3, as you can see in the syllabus later on, you will find that it is about ethnicity, ethnic movements, political movements, tribal unrest. Why is there unrest happening? As I just now said, exploitation is there, forcible integration is there, we are trying to exploit the resources, all these things are happening. Definitely there will be a reaction from their side. That is what you will study in 7.3. And in 8.2 and 9.3, also if you can compare the syllabus, you will see the same ethnic movements and political movements, regionalism, communalism, such issues are all related. That's the reason I am grouping or clubbing these different chapters at one place, because they're all related to each other. And finally, in 8.1 is a very separate chapter. You can study it at the last also. It doesn't make much difference. Here you will see impact of Buddhism, Jainism, Islam, Christianity, all different religions on the tribal people. Okay. And finally, in 9.1 and 9.2, what you will find here is that in 9.1, you will see from the British rule, you will try to understand how the tribal areas were being administered, what are the different policies that have been adopted by the government of India. before independence and after independence, whether these plans are working properly or no, what all improvements can be made for them. All these things will be studied in 9.1. And lastly, in 9.2, you will see the role of anthropology in tribal and rural development. If you remember some time back, that is what I was saying. The main important role of anthropology in tribal and rural development is representing the point of view of the people. It's like we are not someone who has to judge them. We have to think from their point of view also. All such sort of things you will study in the 9.1 and 9.2. And I will definitely recommend that before starting the preparation for Tribal India, don't simply go by 6.1, 6.2. No. Once try to observe the structure, try to understand the linkages between different topics. And compare this and you will understand, yes, this is a better way of studying. I am not saying this is the only way. I am simply saying it is one good way of grouping the topics. Okay. So this is about the syllabus and the basic idea about Tribal India, and believe me, it's really an interesting topic because you will start understanding so many different cultures and you will start appreciating them also. Okay. And compared to other portions of anthropology, tribal section may have, not may, generally has a few questions from current happenings, because government may launch new tribal programs, some new tribes, discussions, some tribes asking for reservations, some tribes asking for a scheduled tribe status. So many things are happening with respect to the scheduled tribes. So you might expect 1 or 2 questions related to current affairs from the Tribal India. And generally in the classroom course, we will be covering all those aspects, particularly every aspect from Ministry of Tribal Affairs, different tribal committees, and all these things will be covered in the classroom apart from the static portion. Okay. Finally, coming down to the last aspect of the discussion, as usual, I will take two questions and just show you the structure for the question. If you can look at this, these 2 questions I have selected from the last year itself, 2019, and just try to look at the question there. Describe the impact of Buddhism on the tribal populations of India. What you simply describe the impact of Buddhism. How would you write the answer? You simply say, you will give a brief introduction about Buddhism, and then you will start saying the social impact, the economic impact, the political impact, the religious impact, the cultural impact. And so in different headings, you can easily organize your answer and write in a very neat, and later on, if you to give a better appeal to your answer, you can even put a small chart. I hope you can see how direct a question it is. Let us also look at another question. Critically assess the existing plans and programs meant for tribal welfare. What you have to do, you have to simply take out all the different plans and programs for tribal welfare, whatever government of India is launched. You'll have to take some 5 programs. Okay, you have to take each program and tell what is the aim of this program, because you have to critically assess. You will say, this is the aim of this program. For health, this is the program. For education, this is the program. For tribal employment, this is the program. Okay, this is how sectorally you can clearly write a very neat answer. Once you highlight the programs, you will tell the aim of the program, and you will give some statistics from the reports, committee reports and all these things to tell that, yes, though the aim is this, we have not been able to achieve this. There is so much of gap. Then you will also write why there are so many gaps, and you will also give some suggestions as to how to improve the implementation of these programs. And that's will finish the answer for this question. Fine. I think that's all for today. And if you can look back all the 5 sessions, we have conducted 5 orientation sessions, and we really look forward to see you all in the offline course. And for any further details with respect to the course, kindly contact the office. Thank you all for your patience. Bye.